Allow me at the onset to congratulate Ambassador Evanson Hall, the permanent representative of St. Kitts and Nevis, on his recent assumption as chair of this distinguished permanent council. Ambassador Hall, I know that you will work hard for the good of the entire Organization of American States, and you will do your country proud as you lead this council for the first quarter of 2022. My very best wishes to you on behalf of the grateful nation of St. Kitts and Nevis. I am particularly honored to be able to address the Permanent Council of the OAS on the theme of resilience and sustainability for development. Could there be a more important theme for us all at this point as we continue to confront the health, social, and economic challenges caused by the onslaught of COVID-19 and the continuing existential threat of climate change? I join you today to underline my country's unwavering commitment to the OAS and the role it continues to play in seeking solutions to the socio-economic challenges which confront our hemisphere. And I want to use this opportunity to extend my country's profound gratitude to our hemispheric partners who, in the spirit of regional cooperation, solidarity, and generosity, have offered various types of assistance to help build resilience in my homeland and in the wider CARICOM community, and indeed across our hemisphere during the nearly 2 years that we have been struggling with the COVID-19 pandemic. I thank the member states of the Caribbean for their own donations of vaccines, the United States of America for the field hospitals it has provided to us, and the Pfizer vaccines provided, among other resources. Mexico and Argentina for their offers of vaccines. Canada for the donation of personal protective equipment. Colombia for supporting the improvement to port safety at this difficult time of air travel, and all other OAS partners who have contributed to the COVAX facility and other multilateral mechanisms. Certainly, it is only by working together, as we have been doing, that we can defeat the virus, re-energize our economies, and put our people back to work, thereby securing the prosperity for the people of the Americas. Although no longer a member of the OAS, it would be remiss of me not to mention the contribution of Cuba to our region with the deployment of its medical brigade, supporting the work of medical and health practitioners across the Americas. We owe them a debt of gratitude for their unwavering support to many countries in Latin America and the Caribbean, despite their own prevailing socioeconomic challenges. As the lead head of government and health matters in the quasi-cabinet of CARICOM, I applaud the Herculean efforts of the Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, and the Caribbean Public Health Agency, CARPHA, in mobilizing resources to address the health challenges of COVID-19 and for their invaluable support to our health professionals across the hemisphere. The recent surge in infections, in hospitalizations, deaths, and the prevailing vaccine hesitancy across the hemisphere remain matters of great concern. More broadly, the World Health Organization has put vaccine hesitancy as one of the top threats to public health globally. As we continue to battle with new variants, it is important that we come together as a family of Western Hemispheric sovereign states, bound together in a spirit of brotherly love, as we redouble our collaborative efforts to strengthen our economies so that we can adequately meet the challenges of increasing global health threats and be better able to safeguard our region. Excellencies, the past 2 years have been particularly difficult for our people across the hemisphere, as the convergence of crises has generated unprecedented shocks to our lives and livelihoods, and simultaneously thwarting our growth and development agenda. For the fragile economies of our CARICOM region, we are also confronted with the devastating effects of climate change, limited access to concessionary financing, the risking of correspondent banking services, the escalating costs of food and commodities, and growing supply chain issues. This pandemic has undoubtedly exposed the weaknesses of our global health and socio-economic architecture, and it further underscores that our countries cannot operate as if it were business as usual. We must take collective and decisive action now to build more resilient and sustainable economies for future generations. For small island developing states striving to coexist with the virus while protecting our already fragile economies, there are 4 facets of resilience that merit consideration in the pursuit of a robust and sustainable recovery. These, in my view, are economic resilience, environmental resilience, social resilience, and disaster resilience. Although we often conveniently find it necessary to identify resilience as a national mission or objective, it is by no means sufficient. There are no historical units of measure that allow us to know how resilient we were 40 years ago, how resilient we are today, and the level of resilience that we aspire to achieve 5 to 10 years into the future. Indeed, there is no acceptable composite index of resilience. But all is not lost. There are readily available and universally accepted underlying forces that are measurable, that can be monitored carefully to assess our vulnerability to exogenous forces. If we fail to recognize the significance of these forces, and if we fail to develop and put in place performance measures that monitor our progress, we will likely find ourselves in the same place that we were 20 or 30 years ago, with unacceptably high rates of unemployment, low rates of income and growth, and attendant high rates of poverty in the hemisphere, propelling a massive human capital flight as our best and brightest head for the exits in search of better alternative opportunities or the so-called greener pastures. Economic resilience, in my view, can be improved through expansionary monetary and fiscal policies. And we have seen some of this happening in the United States of America, in Europe, and elsewhere. In my experience and the experience of St. Kitts and Nevis, lower personal and corporate tax rates, lower interest rates, lower debt-to-GDP ratios, and increased levels of foreign direct investments are critical to our economic development and indeed our economic resilience. We have also found that those policies and measures are disproportionately positive for the least wealthy among us. That is, these policies and measures are disproportionately negative for the least wealthy among us, propelling the entire country forward together. We have, in a manner of speaking, to adopt the slogan of the OAS, more rights for more people, while offering performance measures that allow us to evaluate our economic performance and resilience. The chair, our ambassador and permanent representative, gave a review of the standing of St. Kitts and Nevis, but allowed me, as the Prime Minister of this my beloved country, to report that St. Kitts and Nevis has performed well on a number of economic performance scorecards that we monitor closely. The World Bank data for 2019, for example, shows that, setting aside the United States of America and Canada, which are not in our peer group, St. Kitts and Nevis ranked third among the remaining 32 OAS sovereign states in per capita GDP. Only the Bahamas and Panama were higher. Recent data shows that St. Kitts and Nevis received the #1 global ranking for its innovative Citizenship by Investment program in 2021. The country has also demonstrated a capacity for living within its means by reeling in our debt load from a high of 186% debt to GDP in 2010 to about 40.6% before the COVID struck in 2020. Its current account surplus has allowed us to offer a generous package of benefit to workers who have been displaced as a consequence of the global pandemic. And we did so without having to seek the assistance of the World Bank and IMF, as some other countries have needed to do. Indeed, the distinguished Secretary General made reference to IMF report which indicated that St. Kitts and Nevis entered the pandemic with the strongest reserves within the hemisphere. That is no mean achievement for the smallest democratic country in the hemisphere. In terms of our innovative citizenship program, which was introduced in 1984 as part of our vision of creating a new pathway for growth and development, and to bring additional resources within St. Kitts and Nevis, resources of people, resources of finances, to help with our development. We are pleased with the historic record number of member states within the hemisphere and beyond that has provided visa-free agreements with St. Kitts and Nevis. As it stands now, St. Kitts and Nevis, our citizens, can now experience hassle-free travel to over 161 countries worldwide, including major business hubs in Asia, in Europe, in Africa, and others with which we have achieved bilateral relationships. This is an important indicator of our partnership, of our involvement, and of the respect which the international community holds for St. Kitts and Nevis. We did not arrive at this stage of development by accident. We have suffered through episodes of difficult times, hurricanes, for example, and we also had the scenario of a debt ratio of 186% of our GDP. At that time, it was the third highest in the world, crowding out access to funding in support of the least wealthy and the most vulnerable among us because of the high cost of funding that public debt. We made a commitment to live within our means. And in 2015, when my government took office for the first time, we made a deep commitment to escape the low income levels in which our people have been trapped by announcing a strong commitment to the pursuit of democracy for all our citizens and residents. I am proud as a leader of this country to report that our small nation has been holding its own with respect to the dominant pillars on which this organization proudly stands. With respect to the pursuit of democracy, and we recall 2011 when the Democratic Charter was signed on. The World Bank data for 2020 show that St. Kitts and Nevis is among the top 10 OAS member states that is not burdened by corruption. It holds the ranking of 9 among all 34 member states of the OAS with respect to political stability, which can play utter havoc with our democracy and development. St. Kitts and Nevis is ranked 6 among the 34 OAS member states. And with respect to what the World Bank defines as voice and accountability, St. Kitts and Nevis is ranked 4th among our member states, indicating that here in my beloved country, there is a healthy respect for contrasting points of view expressed by the opposing political side. Democracy has been at the heart of the work of the OAS, and we are heartened that we are in excellent standing in that particular indicator. In the World Justice Project Rule of Law Index, St. Kitts and Nevis has been among the top performers within the OAS and CARICOM. I want to return to the theme of climate change, and again to ask that we do not allow the passionate plea from my fellow CARICOM heads of government at the recently concluded COP26 to fall on deaf ears. Let it challenge all of us to make a difference to our own daily efforts, creating a safer environment to live and prosper. Climate change stymies our economic development and give rise to migration issues and other related challenges. Climate change, which the Secretary General reminds us represents an existential threat to all of us, but more particularly small island states, is destroying the conditions for life and well-being with record heat, worsening hurricanes, floods, sea level rises. Some have argued that COVID-19, that climate change is a bigger challenge than COVID-19. We must work assiduously to fulfill our pledges to adapt to and mitigate its effects, including more resilient health facilities. And here I take the opportunity to commend the PAHO Smart Hospital Program as best in adaptation. Finally, in conclusion, poverty, transnational crime, inequality, social exclusion, all are exacerbated by the pandemic, and they are threats to the democracies of the OAS. As the OAS works towards renewal in our region, we need to address these multidimensional challenges with a multidimensional approach. This requires an OAS that is adaptable and fit for purpose. I thank you.